We hear a lot these days about diversity, so much so that you'd think diversity was a dirty word. But diversity is simply a fact of life, whether in terms of race, or in terms of religion, or in terms of political opinion. But diversity is also a fact within the Bible. And I don't just mean diversity in terms of different groups. I mean diversity within the text of the Bible itself. If that makes you nervous, hear me out. Hello, I'm Stuart Baskin, pastor of First Presbyterian Church of Tyler, Texas. And this is your daily devotional for Saturday, March 1st, 2025. Peter Enns, a biblical scholar at Eastern University in Pennsylvania, a Christian university associated with the American Baptist Church, has written a thought-provoking book I'm working through right now called How the Bible Actually Works. In it, he explores some of the features of the Bible that, if we let ourselves see them, help us to learn to read the Bible the way our ancient forebears did, and to step up to responsible discipleship. He sees three overarching traits of the Bible we need to understand. First, it is ancient. Duh. But what he means is that it was written over the course of more than 1,000 years. What God's people thought, did, and experienced over the course of those years changed, and their understanding of what faithfulness required also changed. Second, the Bible is ambiguous. He demonstrates over and over that even laws that appear straightforward leave a lot of room for interpretation. But not only do they leave room for interpretation, they demand interpretation. Their ambiguity, in other words, is not a flaw, but a feature. Every new generation has to struggle with what the law in particular, but also the whole Bible in general, means for the life of faith in the here and now. The third feature of the Bible, he suggests, is that the Bible is diverse. You can actually see some of this diversity at work if you pay attention. For example, when it comes to the Passover meal, its requirements are different in Exodus, written earlier in Israel's life, and Deuteronomy, written much later. In Exodus, for example, the Passover lamb is to be roasted over a fire, and specifically not to be boiled. But in Deuteronomy, the lamb is to be cooked. What most English translations gloss over is that the word for cooked in Deuteronomy is the same word as, you guessed it, boiled in Exodus. And in Exodus, the meal is to be eaten in one's home, while in Deuteronomy, it is only to be eaten in the place God chooses for his own dwelling, that is, in the temple. Over the course of several hundred years, then, times changed, and the setting and requirements of the Passover meal also changed. Once again, this is not a flaw of the Bible, but a feature of the Bible. I'm aware, as Professor Enns is, that this idea will scare some people, especially those who assert that the Bible is, quote, inerrant. From that perspective, issues like this are dealt with in a variety of ways, including the belief that if we only had the original copies of the books of the Bible, they would be perfectly consistent. That it is only because of scribal errors later on that any such difficulties arose. But what if instead of trying to make the Bible conform to our understanding of what the Bible should be, what if we let the Bible speak for itself? Then we could engage in the same kind of faithful conversation with the Bible as the ancients did. What they did, says Enns, was to constantly reframe older text to fit their time. They realized that God continues to speak, not through unchanging texts, but through faithful exploration, faithful pondering of their meaning for the present, using all the gifts of wisdom that could be mustered. To do otherwise is, at best, to avoid the hard work of faithful exploration and discussion. At worst, well, it's a form of propaganda. Enns writes, any exploration of the Bible that needs to minimize, cover up, or push these self-evident biblical characteristics aside isn't really an explanation. It's propaganda. Strong words. But what he means is that Hiding behind an artificial doctrine such as biblical inerrancy that doesn't even agree with the Bible itself is actually an impediment to faith. What we're called to do, what the Bible asks us to do, is what the faithful have been doing from the very beginning, reading the old story and using all the wisdom we can muster to try to figure out for ourselves what it all means for us today. That's the work of faith. Now may God continue to bless you and keep you in all that you do this day and in all the days ahead.